to Kindred, hosted by me, Kate, and my sister, Jen. In this podcast, we explore our human relationship to the natural world. In connecting to this planet, we also connect to understanding, compassion, and empathy. How can we see ourselves not as separate or above animals in nature, but a critical and integrated part of an active ecosystem? Through conversations with animal advocates, scientists, conservationists, and many others, we look to inspire a new awareness of how and why we connect to animals and nature in order to repair and restore our relationship to the natural world. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Kindred. Hello, sister. Good to see you. How are you today?
I am pretty good. Happy to be back.
Yes.
With another episode to talk about. Yeah, it's been a minute.
This is such a treat of an episode, too. We are so excited about this one for all kinds of reasons. But I have a few little things to talk about before we launch into our guest today. Jennifer, I don't know if you know this, but kindredpodcast.co, our website, had a refresh. So looks a little different. It's new. It is fresh. And please go visit us and see what you think. It's a lovely new website.
I certainly will.
Oh, yeah. Right. Did I say it was fresh? It is. Please go check it out for all our guest links and show notes. And you can also now...
What is it again? Kindredpod.co. Is that right?
That is false. It is kindredpodcast.co. But close.
Okay. I tried one time for about 5 minutes to find it as the kindredpodcast.co. I'm like, what the hell? Where is this thing?
No,
yeah.
It's just kindredpodcast.co. Thank you for that clarification. That's very helpful. Okay. The other new thing is that you can subscribe to our newsletter on the website.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not like we only drop the newsletter when we're actually dropping episodes, and so every couple of weeks you get one. So it's not a ton of it. It's interesting. It has all kinds of fun little tidbits about lots of interesting content. So check it out. Please subscribe to that. And then always follow us on Instagram and Facebook. This is at The Kindred Pod. So we made it extra confusing.
See why it's confusing? Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, everyone. Sorry. Just try to
keep people like me on our toes. I know.
Try to be dynamic and flexible and resilient and all of the words that we use now. Curious, all of those things. So please check it all out. And then with the other news that we have, which is really exciting for us specifically, meaning me and our what's her name? Kat Gaddy, our producer, is that we are offering subscriptions this season and forever. So for the cost of a pound of Jarlsberg from the deli, you can help us, support us and our podcast. And as other people like to say, for the price of a cup of coffee. So one day you can just get a cup of coffee, and that same day you can just, subscribe for $4.99 a month or something. And then for the rest of the month, you don't have to pay for it again. It's like a one-shot deal. So
amazing. I would prefer to skip my Jarlsberg for the week so I can afford to buy the Kindred subscription.
Right. See, that's dedication, and that's what we're asking for. Not exactly dedication, just your money. So, but honestly, we are very excited to be offering that. And we will be giving you actually extra content for that subscription. So we're not just going to give you nothing. We're going to give you some other things, which is in the works and also exciting. So yeah,
determined.
Yes. To be recorded. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it hasn't been rolled out yet. Let's say that.
No, it's not in the can, as they say. It has not been bounced. Yes. All lingo. Yeah. If you know, you know. But moving on to our guest today, who we are clearly giddy about. Today we are talking to New York Times bestselling author Sy Montgomery, and about her work and specifically her new book titled Of Time and Turtles, And I have it right here in my hand. Jenny, you can see it, but nobody else can. But yes, Of Time and Turtles, Mending the World, Shell by Shattered Shell. It's her latest book. It's just come out at end of September. So you can buy this book wherever books are sold. We're very excited to talk about this and other of her works. She is a prolific writer. She has written 35, now 36, I guess, going on books. She writes for children and adults. Sy is an exceptionally wonderful human. And for me, the fact that I can now read a book about turtles means a lot. I mean, as a kid, I was always completely enchanted by turtles when I would come across them, and the time I spent in the woods, my turtle friends. So it's just really exciting to have a new book by Sy, and we are really excited to also interview her. So just a little bit about Sy. I would say, I mean, I consider her a naturalist, but really she's a writer, and she, like I said, is a New York Times bestselling author, which that happened when she wrote the book The Soul of an Octopus in 2015. She's also an international bestseller. She's the winner of the New England Independent Booksellers Association Nonfiction Award, the Children's Book Guild Nonfiction Award. She got the Henry Berg Award for nonfiction, which is given by the ASPCA for humane education, which is very cool. She's worked with National Geographic, with documentaries. She's just, and the list goes on. She's amazing. You can find more about her on symontgomery.com, her website. And other of her titles include, let me just read some here: Walking with Great Apes, Spell of the Tiger, Journey of the Pink Dolphin, Adventures in Pursuit of a New Species, The Good Pig, which is actually a pig she was one of her actual pets, Birdology, the hummingbirds, like I mentioned, The Soul of an Octopus, which we will be talking with her a little bit about in the interview. So that's a bit about Sy. I also just wanted to mention too, I don't know if you've gone on Instagram and looked at Matt Patterson's artwork. Did you see his stuff? So he is an incredible artist that actually was a cohort in this book with Sy about the turtles, but he's an amazing artist, and he did some of the illustrations with this book of Time and Turtles. So you can find and follow Matt at Stone Ridge Studios on Instagram, and I would definitely check out his artwork. He's incredible. So
great.
Yeah, very cool. So it's interesting because when we first discovered Sy, I've heard of The Soul of an Octopus for a long time, and then Kat and I were talking about authors we wanted to interview, and Sy came up, and this was before even we knew her book was coming out. And I especially loved her work because to us that she just embodies kindred. She takes a species or a subject and she just dives so deeply into it, and she talks so much about the species, and it's such an intimate sort of account of the relationships she builds, or not all the time, but her deep dive is something that just shows us so clearly how, when we get to know a certain species, the wonders that she uncovers. And that's really why we wanted to talk to Sy. And then when we spoke with her publicist, it said that the book was coming out. So the timing is incredible. We're really grateful to Sy to speak with us about her life work, her perspective. She's just an incredible human. So we really enjoyed talking with her, didn't we?
Yeah, it was great. And yeah, it was just so fun to get to know her and hear her the depth of her love of animals and all that was great. Yeah.
Sweet. And I think too, one thing I didn't realize before I read this book, that turtles are listed as endangered or critically endangered through almost all the different species of turtles. It's just like, and there's some that have just been completely erased off the face of the earth. And so her work with the rescues that she talks about in the book, again, please find her book. It's really sweet. And we can't wait for you to hear our interview with her. So, Sy, thanks again for this conversation. And we'll see you guys at the takeaway. Sy, welcome to Kindred, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, I'm thrilled to be on with you today and with your fabulous audience. This is such a good group of folks.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. If you would please introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
My name is Sy Montgomery, and I'm an author of 35 books, and they're all about animals, and most of them are about our relationship with different animals. I write for adults and for kids, and I think of myself more of an animal person than even a writer, but it's writing that allows me, I think, to serve the animals who I love.
Well, what a privilege it is to speak with you today, and congratulations on your brand spanking new book out today, titled Of Time and Turtles, Mending the World, Shell by Shattered Shell. Round of applause, everyone. Well done. Very exciting. And thank you for writing this book. I feel like I've been waiting a lifetime for it as a longtime turtle lover.
Oh, I'm so glad. Everyone seems to love turtles. And yet, they're such surprising creatures. And I learned so much during these 3 years of researching and living and writing this book.
Yeah, well, that's incredible. We can't wait to get to that. But first, Sy, I wanted to spend just a minute getting a little of your history and what led you to dive so deeply into writing about your experiences with animals.
Well, I always felt growing up that, a lot of us are having identity issues. Many of my friends are like, geez, I don't really feel like I was born in the right body. Well, I can relate because I feel like I was the wrong species. As soon as I could speak, I conveyed to my parents this problem when I told them I was actually a horse, but they wanted me to be a little girl. Everyone wanted me to be a little girl. And my mother took me to the pediatrician. She thought this was something horrible. And the pediatrician said, don't worry, it's a phase. She'll get over it. And I did when I discovered I was actually a dog. So I've always felt a kinship with other creatures, more so than with my own kind. And I think that has given me a portal into the lives of the other creatures who inhabit with us this planet. And I kind of feel bad for people whose friendships are confined to only one species, because being friends with other animals has expanded my heart, has expanded my senses, and I think has expanded my capacity for compassion and awe.
Wow. I mean, I can relate to that on some levels. Wanting to be a horse or loving them so much that I every day wished for a pony in my backyard, which eventually did show up, thank you to my parents. But so how did you get into writing about these experiences then that we're now reading about?
Well, when I was a little girl and began to read, my father would set aside all the New York Times articles about animals, and we would read them together. They had lots of big words that, as you start reading, you're like in first grade. My dad would help me. Well, I was born in 1958, so I'm reading in the 1960s. And what were all the New York Times stories about animals about in the 1960s? They were about how we were extinguishing them. They were about how even the great whales in the seas were going extinct because we were hunting them and our pollution was ruining them. Our national symbol, my father was a general, so before that as a colonel, he had eagles on his shoulders. But the bald eagle was going extinct because of DDT. And I kept learning about all these animals who I felt were my family. And my kind, humankind, was often inadvertently pushing them off the face of the earth. I remember when I found out the dinosaurs were extinct and I was inconsolable. I didn't care that the tooth fairy didn't really exist, or that, when I found out Santa Claus was made up, that was okay. But dinosaurs extinct, that was terrible. But worse, that these magnificent creatures were going extinct because of our pollution and our human overpopulation and our hunting. And I felt from that moment that instead of being a veterinarian, which had been my dream up to that point, that maybe I could help the animals more by writing about them, as these journalists in the New York Times were doing, and reaching out to my fellow humans so that we could together make the world safe for animals and people.
Well, this is why you embody kindred to us, because of this like innate sort of passion and drive that you are always aware of. I think a lot of us humans are born with this, but we lose it, or we aren't turned on to it. But this is where you've carried this your whole life. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, as you say, I think we are born with it. Our kind was, for most of human existence, hunter-gatherers who, obviously, you had to pay attention to the natural world, to all these lives around you, or you were toast.
Right.
So, it is part of us. Children's dreams are full of animals. But I think that often we adults squash that. My best friend, Elizabeth Marshall Thomas, who turned 92 last week.
Wow, congratulations to her.
Yes, she's a fabulous and a wonderful author she lived with the Bushmen when she was, as a teenager in Namibia. She wrote all these books about animals, including the huge mega hit, The Hidden Life of Dogs. And she remembers when she was going to the library, she took out every book the library had about animals. And then the librarian, this was like the one evil librarian, because all other librarians are superheroes in my book. But the librarian told her, like, no, you can't, you should be reading books about people anyway. And that's insane. Yeah. I mean, people are fine. I married one. Many of my friends are humans. I don't have a problem with humans, except there's just so many of us right now. But to confine your interest, your friendships, your kinship to our brothers and sisters. And when you think of it, we share 90% of our genetic material with all placental mammals. We share 40% of our genetic material with plants. And we share even more of our genetic material, interestingly, with fungi, who are more closely related to us than our plants. Wow. So the whole kinship, the whole concept behind kindred is based in science and based in story. All of our stories, all of the creation stories tell us that we are kin. And I don't know every creation story to every human culture, but those that I do know pretty much mirror evolution, in that the animals were here first, and then we came along, and that we learned from them.
Yeah. Well, and, now let's dig in a little to some of these stories and some of these stories that you've written. And, as a naturalist and a writer and an overall good human, like I said, you do embody kindred for us. I mean, your focus on the human connection to animals always shows us that with dedicated time, we ultimately see two things about animals, and that's that they are sentient and intelligent. And, so for a minute, let's look at your New York Times bestseller titled The Soul of an Octopus, a surprising exploration into the wonder of consciousness. As an example, so you take this animal, someone eat or considered alien or even gross, and you connect us ultimately to friendship and love and a deep sense of awe. And your experience with octopuses is so intimate, not only because of your passion and dedication to knowing them, but likewise their willingness to know you. And for me, this is where the real magic happens. So talk to us about that experience and what that means to you.
Yeah, I'd love to share my first encounter with an octopus. And that was with a beautiful giant Pacific octopus named Athena at the New England Aquarium. And my friend Scott Dowd, who's now my close friend, but at that time I just met him that day, he opened the lid to her tank. And I did not know what to expect. But I saw her turn bright red with emotion and excitement. She oozed away from her lair and came up to the surface to look me in the face. I saw her beautiful, bright eyes focus on mine. And then she began reaching her arms and their glistening white suckers towards me. And I wanted to touch her. And I said, "Can I touch her?" And Scott said, "Sure, go ahead." And I plunged my hands and arms into the freezing cold salt water. And soon my skin was covered with dozens of these soft, questing suckers. And she's tasting me and feeling me and looking at me at the same time. And it was obvious to me that she was just as curious about me as I was about her.
Right.
So right there, we had a moment of connection across a divide of 500 million years of evolution, because our last common ancestor goes that far back. And yet, here is this marine invertebrate, and here is this terrestrial mammal. And there was a point of connection right then. And later on, I spent years at New England Aquarium being an octopus observer and getting to know octopuses who, alas, do not live very long.
Yeah.
They last only 3 to 5 years. And by the time you meet them as adults, because it's little grains of rice-sized paralarvae, those animals you're not even going to see them.
Yeah.
So by the time they're in the aquarium, they may be 1 or 2 years old. But getting to know them as individuals, these octopuses absolutely looked forward to seeing me as much as I did. And how do I know? Because they would turn bright red with excitement. They would rush over to meet me. They would treat other people differently because they recognize you. And this has been tested. I mean, it's been tested in laboratories. It's been tested in aquaria. They definitely recognize just the sight of people. I'm sure they also recognize our taste, but they know you. And if they don't like you, they'll jet away or they'll remain in their lair. And if they want to play with you, they make that abundantly clear. If they don't, they make that clear as well. They can jet away. They will make an eye bar, which they often do to camouflage themselves. If they're really upset, they'll blast you with freezing cold salt water right in the face. And if they're tremendously upset, they'll even shoot ink.
Right.
So I knew, and each octopus had, all the ones that I knew while I was researching the book were all female, although I've subsequently gotten to know some males. And they all had distinctive personalities. Some made up games to play with us. Others decided that they wanted to train us to give them a fish first thing and play with them later. Some of them wanted to play before they got their fish, but the one that wanted her fish first, her name was Kali, she blasted us in the face with salt water unless we would give her fish first thing.
Right there.
Yeah, she was totally training us. Oh gosh,
Yeah.
it was a wonderful octopus.
Oh,
We're all individuals, and there have been other octopuses that I've known who were just shy, and I understand what it's like to be shy. I am actually a shy person, not with animals, but with people I'm shy. Not with you, because I feel like I'm with kindred spirits.
Right. Well, Jen, like just listening to Sy, like doesn't it make you think like how you, Sy, like unveil this complex nature of an animal that really kind of always brings me to that thought, like Jen, I've talked about a lot, like how this complex nature likely exists in all animals, right?
Yes.
And like we've talked about that many times, and just how, with time and patience and awareness, you are able to decipher feeling and emotion and choice, and a level of, Jen, we were talking about when, Sy talks about her, the suckers tasting her, right? And just this level of like, of understanding they have of us, that I don't think I can really even begin to comprehend what their abilities are.
I know.
Us.
I totally hear you. That is completely true, and that's been observed by greater minds than mine. Henry Beston wrote in The Outermost House, one of my favorite books, that and they are living by voices that we cannot hear. And that was before infrasound, for example, was discovered. That was before ultrasound, which bats use, was discovered. That was before we discovered that, reptiles use vocal communication routinely, and we don't even know it. He was prescient. It is true that animals have all of these powers that we're only now discovering. And even those animals that we've lived with and love, probably more than any other, dogs, who make it their business to understand us in a way that no human ever will. They have developed a sensitivity to us that humans don't even have to us. They are seeing things that are very real in our worlds that we don't. But when we apprentice ourselves to these animals, when we hang out with these animals, when we study these animals, those perceptions become their gift to us. And although I cannot taste with my skin, when I see someone like an octopus doing that, I began to touch that reality, to approach that reality, and my reality expands, as does my wonder in this world.
yeah, that's so beautifully said, Sy, and that's so what I feel like is so fascinating and exciting about this age we live in now, that we are, as human beings, I feel like just starting to really come at this from the approach of we don't know everything. We always, we tend to put ourselves at the top, as human beings, and even how we interact with animals, we own them. I'm so-and-so's owner, and we've talked to a lot of different people who study animals and experience the same kind of things that you're learning from the animals that you're being with, and that window behind, but also the humility that you are approaching them with is I feel like a fairly new concept in the world. We don't know everything, and we are learning from. We have to bring ourselves with a little bit of humility into that practice, and I think it's a really, really fascinating thing, that how much we are learning from this new approach to doing that, and what a mind expanding experience that is to be on the receiving end. Like, we get to hear these conversations from your amazing work. I was saying to Kate yesterday, it's like a little window behind the curtain that we would never get access to otherwise, and what a gift that is to
Gosh,
human beings.
that is what I'm doing on this planet, I hope. And it's the gift of humility alone is amazing that animals give us. But if you don't have that humility, you'll be blinded by your own reflection, and
Right.
I try to go into these relationships expecting nothing and not even expecting a relationship. I mean, it could be that an animal has no desire to connect with me, which is fine.
Right.
You know, and there have been other animals that I've written about in my life that I didn't attempt to be the animal's friend because it doesn't want you.
Right.
And you know, the animals don't have to do anything for us.
Right.
They don't have to all be about us. Just the fact that they exist is enough, and more than enough. Just to be on the planet, even if you're never going to see, you know, a mountain gorilla or a wild cheetah, or, you know, even if you never get to interact with an octopus, just knowing of their powers, just feeling that. There's this wonderful quote attributed to Thales of Miletus, and it embodies to me what the octopuses taught me, what all the animals have to teach us. And it goes like this: the universe is alive and has fire in it and is full of gods. To me, what that says is our world is just incandescent with rich lives, and all around us is holiness.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful point too, that to have the respect that they don't have to be our friends. My closest experience with interacting with animals on a regular basis was I volunteered at a wildlife clinic, and a lot of those animals we get here in the Philadelphia area are birds and like cottontail rabbits, squirrels, possums, and what I was so excited at the beginning, and I realized very quickly most of my job was to respect them enough to not invade their space. We kept the cages covered because these are wild animals that we're trying to reintroduce to the wild. And even as much as learning that a cottontail can die of shock from interaction with a human being, they are so sensitive and so very highly attuned that only the vet could go in once a day to give medicine and food and clean it and do all of it at once, because even going in more than once a day was too much for them. So it was an interesting thing. It's like, this animal does not want to be my friend. And I need to love and respect them enough to let them be a wild animal, which was very heartbreaking at first, but I learned to really appreciate, to prioritize them over myself. You know, so it's interesting.
What a great point. Yeah. Luckily, the octopuses that I knew already wanted to approach people just because they're so naturally curious.
Yeah.
But the personality of animals and whether they are bold or shy is now recognized as a really important thing to study, because it has a profound effect on how their lives will go. And they may have, for social species, a profound effect on his or her community, according to their personality. And now researchers are studying the personalities of animals when, 40 years ago, they were denied personalities at all by science. They were supposed to number them instead of name them. Jane Goodall's first paper, which blew everyone away, about tool use in chimps, it was rejected again and again and again. And why? Because she named her study animals instead of numbering them like rocks. But that was the key to her genius. And it was the key to the genius of Louise Leakey, who picked her and picked two other women, Diane Fossey, who studied mountain gorillas, who did not have a scientific training. She needed to see, both of those women needed to see with new eyes who animals really were. And I see someone's tail on the screen. Oh, I love that we have a cat visiting us while we talk.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, so much of what you sort of talk about is, gives us chills. And, you said to me earlier when we spoke that awe is what renews the soul. And I think getting from that very bleak, very objective, almost cruel sort of perspective of animals and numbers, and like treating them like even rocks have energy, right? And to now where we get to read these experiences that you have on such an intimate level. And I love what you said, how if we can apprentice ourselves to them. And that's where I think, Sy, we're heading. I think that there's this movement, thanks to people like you that Jen and I get to talk to. This is what I think the bigger movement is actually happening. And it's like you said, it's an amazing time to be alive, to see what we can do to continue to apprentice ourselves to them. That's a beautiful quote that I will sit with for a long time. But now I would love to move on to your new book titled, if we're all ready for this, Of Time and Turtles, Mending the World, Shell by Shattered Shell. Congratulations again. And today we are recording on the day the book drops. Yay, again.
It's a blessing for me to be with you today.
Oh, man. And so we've been talking about this, right? Like, many of your books focus on animals that we as a general public don't have access to or haven't experienced at all in our own backyards. But turtles are a different story. Many of us can say we have encountered turtles at some time in our lives, right? And like I said before, I spent time with a few as a child that I came across and thought I could love forever, like Jen was saying, and quickly realized that an 8-year-old's room was not in the best interest of the turtle, and luckily released the poor creature back into its previous habitat. So that's all good. But I'm curious what brought you to immerse yourself specifically into the lives of turtles and to write this book.
Well, most projects have several beginnings, but one of the beginnings for me was meeting Matt Patterson, the artist who accompanied me on this turtle journey. I started doing more turtley things. As a child, I'd had those unfortunate little red ear baby turtles that we all fed the wrong food and kept them in those death bowls, and we all loved them, but we didn't know how to care for them properly.
Right.
And I too had kidnapped wild turtles from the woods when I was growing up in Virginia, and also set them free. But I felt turtles kind of calling to me as I entered my 60s. And as I began to consider my next big project after Soul of an Octopus, which examined the philosophical question of consciousness, I wanted to examine another of the hard questions in philosophy, which is time. I had just entered this new phase of life as an elder, and I was excited about it. But I felt I really had to get a handle on time, because I had not gotten one. I felt, I think so many of us throughout our 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, you just kind of feel like you're running out into the street in your bathrobe to get a cab to the airport all the time.
Right.
And there never was enough time. Well, interestingly, although I pitched this book before we knew what would happen, this book was lived during the pandemic, when time fell apart, when the world shattered, not just from the pandemic, but in environmental catastrophe, and in our country, political divisions, the life of which we had never seen.
Right.
And Australia was on fire, the Amazon was on fire. It felt like the world was literally coming apart.
Yeah.
And it was an incredible miracle to me that while this was unfolding, while most people felt that they were languishing in this never land of not time, I had the great honor of working at a turtle rescue with Turtle Rescue League, where these two women in their house, in their basement, at any one time, are taking care of between 250 and 1,000 injured or unwanted or hatchling baby turtles. And to be able to help them put the world back together.
Yeah.
This time everything was falling apart. It really was a staggering miracle. And looking back, at the time I knew that, but looking back on it, I'm even more astonished at the blessing of being able to do that.
Yeah, and it really is incredible, the timing, right? Of like you starting to work on this book and volunteering, and then COVID happening and the shutdown. I mean, the timing really is. And it's like, of course, it's called Of Time and Turtles. I get that title. Absolutely. I just want to mention really quickly that Matt Patterson was kind of your cohort through this book, wasn't he? And he is an absolutely fantastic artist that I urge people. You can find him on Instagram at Stone Ridge Art Studios, and please check out his illustrations that he did specifically for your book. They are absolutely beautiful and really capture the sort of exotic nature of turtles and their dinosaur cells and their ancient cells. He's a beautiful artist and an absolute a lover, maybe obsessed of, he's an obsessive turtle person, which is also really lovely. So you definitely have a kindred spirit then. But yeah, so talk to us about some of your most favorite moments with, and who were what stories, what are the best stories that you kind of took away from, spending this time with these amazing ancient beings? Some of these turtles were 100 years old you were working with.
I know. I thought, who better to lead me on this journey through time than these creatures who arose at the time of the dinosaurs, persisted through the asteroid strike of 66 million years ago, survived the ice ages, and yet may not survive us. Right. Anyway, I'd love to share with you what it was like the first time I went to visit Alexia and Natasha. Alexia Bell and Natasha Noack created the Turtle Rescue League, founded the Turtle Rescue League in their home, a suburban home that looks like any other, except for the fact it's painted an electric green. But you wouldn't know that there were 1,000 turtles in there. So we'd actually been there to a turtle summit before, but not just visiting only with them. So Matt and I went on one day in I guess it was 2019, and you pull up and you notice the turtle ambulance with the strobe lights in the driveway. You notice the signs all around saying turtle lovers parking only, right. Violators better shut the shell up. Then you walk past security cameras and go in the door, and you step over this wooden barricade that comes up to your knees. And you're immediately met with the reason for the barricade, because a red-footed tortoise named Pizza Man comes stomping toward you like a heat-seeking missile. He's just headed right toward you. And it's not just some random thing. He wants to know where the action is. Right. Pizza Man is a very social turtle. And so he stomps up to me and gave me what was obviously a greeting. It was a greeting exactly like a handshake or a hug, in that it was a ritual. He looked to one side, jerked his head to the middle, looked to the other side, jerked his head to the middle, and stared up into my face. And then after he was done greeting me, he went over to Matt. And Matt, who, except for in the snow, is always either barefoot or wearing what do you call them? Flip-flops. We used to call them thongs, but you don't want to say that now. Yeah, right. He was wearing flip-flops, and his feet are so warm you gather around them like a campfire. So the cold-blooded turtle, of course, is even more attracted to Matt and actually stood on Matt's feet while he performed his greeting. Wow. So, and then, just minutes later, Sprockets, the Burmese mountain tortoise, he arises. He was like sleeping in the bathroom, and he comes stomping out to see us. Some of these turtles, we think of turtles, some of them, I mean, everyone loves turtles, but we don't necessarily think of them as experiencing emotions and having all of these thoughts and having personality, but they totally do. And some turtles, like some people, are shy. But some of these turtles, there was another one, Percy. He was a box turtle. He was at least 100 years old. And he would chase you. I mean, he would come running after you. It was such a riot. But of all the turtles that I got to know, the one who captured my heart and Matt's heart, and Natasha and Alexia adored him too, was an unlikely hero. He was a 42-pound adult male, probably 60 years old, snapping turtle. And people are deathly afraid of snapping turtles.
Oh, heck yeah. They're terrifying. Yeah.
But this guy, I had no idea, but I would eventually become such good friends with Fire Chief that I would be able to feed him by hand a tiny little turtle pellet.
Right.
He would change his behavior to take it gently from my hand. He would inhibit his bite. And the first time I saw him, he was eating a banana that was dropped in whole by Natasha at the top of the tank. And his head shot out. It looked like it was as big as my thigh. And I've seen Crocodylus porosus, the estuarine crocodile. I've seen those crocodiles lurch out of the water to take prey. And that's what he reminded me of.
Right.
It was like a scary moment.
Yeah.
But we would become such good friends with him that we could pet his head. I mean, I don't recommend you do this with a snapper. You don't know. We could carry him around. And we ended up assisting Natasha and Alexia in the recovery of this turtle. He had been hit by a truck when he was crossing from his summer pond to his winter pond. He was crossing the road. And when he was hit, he managed to drag himself using his front legs, because his back legs were then paralyzed, back into his pond. The firemen who in whose fire pond he lived knew him and loved him, but he was a snapper. And these brave guys who run into burning buildings to rescue people, they were too afraid to help the snapper.
Right.
Someone did call Turtle Rescue League, and these two skinny ladies, one of whom is blind, come rushing out in their kayak. And they go into the water and they lift up this angry, upset, bleeding, broken, snapping turtle who weighs 42 pounds, get him into the kayak, get him into the turtle ambulance, and they patch up his shell. By the time we met him, which was 2020, his shell had healed, but his back legs and tail still, they were starting to come back because they can regenerate nerve tissue, but he needed physical therapy.
Right.
Matt and I were his physical therapists.
That's right. And didn't you build him like a little wheels to attach to the back so you could like over time walk I see walking with him and regain his strength of this absolute sweetheart of a turtle.
I know. And Alexia actually came up with a design. I mean, we all had input into the design. She had designed wheelchairs for several turtles. Right. I thought, a wheelchair for a turtle? But if you go online, you'll see that a lot of places have made wheelchairs for turtles, and they can they can go faster than ever before. Right. Which is totally, totally awesome. So yeah, we had at one point we walked him with a sling, we worked with a wheelchair, and we walked around with him outside, getting his strength back. Yeah. And it was a real roller coaster ride. We did not know what was going to happen with him. We knew that he wasn't going to die at that point, but we did not know that he could ever rule a pond again.
Well, because what's the quality of life? You can't put him back into the wild if he would be too compromised. He wouldn't be able to.
That's what we worried about. And he was welcome to live forever at Turtle Rescue League. But most of his days he spent in a hospital tank. Yeah. And while turtles are expert at waiting, they spend, most turtles in the Northeast hibernate or brumate, as we call it. And so, they're good at waiting.
Yeah.
And they can survive patiently, all kinds of horrible things. But we didn't want him to spend the rest of his life, which could easily be another 50 or 100 years,
Yeah.
without having a pond of his own.
Well, and
And
you guys really had a sense, I feel like, that he needed to go back to his pond. And I think your dedication to ultimately getting him there, right?
yes, we ended up where he ended up is actually up the street from me.
Oh, wow.
I don't want to give away the ending of the book, but Matt and I see him all the time, and he is safe, and he has his own pond, and it's so redemptive for me too. With the octopus book, it broke your heart every time your octopus friend died, and it
Yeah.
was going to happen every few years. But here is someone who's going to outlive me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's the other great news about what Natasha and Alexia and all the folks who work at Turtle Rescue League are doing. It's the great thing that Turtle Survival Alliance is doing. It's the great thing that my friends who have invited me and Matt to work with them to protect the nesting grounds about 40 minutes now from our house are doing, is that our work will outlive us. The turtles that we work with will outlive us.
Yeah.
And that connects you to eternity in a wonderful way. And little did I know when I started this investigation of time that it would open up for me another way to live inside and outside of time. And that I could finally find a way to not be the prisoner of the clock and the calendar, but to connect to what the Greeks called kairos, sacred time, not just chronos, the time that we track with our watches and with sundials and with watching the sand run out of the hourglass. Time doesn't necessarily have to run out or go in one direction like an arrow. And turtles teach us that because they embody deep time.
Well, that's just so beautiful. And it reminds me of something you said to me when we talked last. You said, you touch eternity when you look into the eyes of a turtle. And I think that was so true, learning about Fire Chief. And please read this book, because honestly, his journey was tenuous and heart-wrenching, and there are a lot of other turtle stories in there too. And I think what you just said too, Sy, really sort of embodies why, after reading this book, like the inspiration to protect and support these incredible beings that live in this space that you just so beautifully described. I understand why people dedicate, like Natasha and Alexia and other people that you worked with, in the South, their whole lives to protecting these animals that, at one point you were talking about the way a turtle sees, and like of the whoosh of a car is just, it's so quick. They don't understand that it either was a moment in time or it crushes their shell. And I think, it is just the most beautiful reminder. And that idea that there are different ways to experience time.
We don't think of that. But when we see, for example, a hummingbird's wings, it's a blur to us. A hawk sees each individual wing beat. So this is actually called a flicker fusion rate.
Oh, wow.
It's a scientific term for it, and it can be measured. This is one reason why dogs frequently didn't like watching TV until we got HD, because they see a series of stills when we see movement on our television. So
Interesting.
we're all experiencing the world in different ways. And thinking of that makes the world so much richer for us, knowing that we're seeing maybe a tiny sliver of reality, but we're getting a fabulous glimpse of something beautiful, like when we look through a telescope. There's so much else out there, but the star that you're watching, or the planet that you've got in your sights, is kind of a window to that wider world.
Absolutely. And that's just so beautifully said. And, the one thing I just wanted to comment quickly on is that you did mention security and cameras when you went to these women's house. And there was also that sort of experience when you went to other places, the high security. And I just wanted to explain to people that that's because turtles are highly trafficked, not just in this country, but around the world. And I think they're hearing about all of the protection that, people provide for them. I just think it's important point to make. And a lot of the release places and the turtle places that about are highly secretive. People don't talk about where they are, and because they're so protective of these incredible animals. And I just wanted to mention that. I thought that was an important kind of side note.
Oh, I'm so glad you did, because turtles are actually the most endangered vertebrate group of animals on land.
Right.
People don't realize that, because, you go to your pond and there's a whole bunch of turtles sunning on a log.
Right.
But that's one species of turtle. The other species are increasingly rare. They've been pretty much vacuumed out of all of Asia. There's all kinds of amazing species of turtles that look like they have 6 eyes, and turtles whose shells glow in the dark, and turtles that can climb trees. And they have amazing abilities, but we don't know about them because they're almost all gone. And thanks to Turtle Survival Alliance, they are breeding them up to repatriate into the wild. But we can help, though. One, we must never take a turtle out of the wild unless you are doing like a Head Start program with a permit from the state. Whenever we cross a turtle, we need to cross it in the direction it's going. They are probably trying to lay eggs. Do that. The other thing is, we may even encounter illegal sales of turtles, and when that happens, it's important that we report this to the police. I know for a fact, because I've met turtles who were rescued from this trade, that turtles are being sold illegally for their meat.
Oh, yeah.
They're also being sold illegally for use in traditional Chinese medicine. Most of TCM is plant-based, but there's a handful of animals that are used in TCM, and this is wiping out species, and it's not helping sick people recover.
Right.
So if you ever see, and the other thing is, like, many people say, oh, I love turtles, and they may have a pet turtle. And there are some species that are legally bred as pets. There's others that are sold as pets, but it's illegal. Right. So make sure that, the pet store that you go to, or better than even going to a pet store, adopt an unwanted turtle, like you can from Turtle Rescue League.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's tons of turtles that people gave up, not realizing that these animals are going to live for, decades more than your kid's going to want to be playing with them. And he's going to need a 40-gallon tank or a 100-gallon tank. Adopt one of those, because they need you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Sy, we ask all our guests this question, and it's our last question for you today. But from your perspective and your deep knowledge and extensive experience with animals in the natural world, why is this conversation important?
I think this conversation that you and I are having right now is important to connect us again with animals who we believe are common, but who can absolutely flood us with wonder. Animals who need our help, that we can help easily. So I also think it's important to have this conversation that you have with all of your guests. I think that Kindred is so important to remind us of who we are. We are about connection. It is so essential, the work that you are doing, to connect us with the rest of animate creation, because we are at an exciting point in our history, but it could also be a breaking point. And when we look at entire continents on fire, when we look at the floods and the hurricanes and the environmental devastation going on around us, it is of our own making, and it's affecting everyone. And we need to take the reins back and control ourselves, control our overpopulation, control our pollution in the world, control our use of fossil fuels. We've got to do that. And the way we do miracles is by love. And we love our family, our human and animal and plant family. We love our planet. We just need to rekindle that.
Well, that's so, again, beautifully said, Sy. And, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your just absolute heartfelt, soulful perspective and creating a little more awe to renew our souls and inspire us to continue to care about everything that's around us and seeing the soul and eternity in many eyes of animals, not just turtles. But before we go, please tell us where we can buy your books, and most recently of Time and Turtles. Where can we follow you, and how can we support you?
Oh, wow. Well, nothing makes me happier than knowing someone has taken a book I've written home with them, whether it's from the library or the bookstore, because I want to be connected with readers. That's what every author wants. So you can get my books anywhere. You can get them online, but it's better to go into a real store, I think. Barnes and Noble has been really promoting my stuff. Independent bookstores. I'm visiting a whole bunch of bookstores with Matt Patterson as part of our book tour, and you can see where we'll be at symontgomery.com/appearances. So come out and say hello. And in the back of the book, we also give the addresses and websites for the people and organizations who are helping turtles. So please help them. I do that with all of my books. If there's a way for people to help, I want to make it easy for them to do so. So thank you so much. And nothing would make me happier than to meet some of your community. So we're going to be all over New England. We're going to California and to Washington State and to Oregon, and we'll be in Florida, and we'll be in we're going to be all over the place. Anyway.
No, that's great. And we, of course, as usual, will put your links in our show notes on the website, and where you can find your schedule, and of course, the book drops today, the day we're recording. I have the first little book here, but I get my final copy, the hardback, tonight. I got mine through Amazon. It's being delivered by 10 p.m. They promised me, so I'm going to stay up for that. And again, Sy, thank you for writing this book about turtles. Thank you for all of the work that you do. You change lives and perspectives, and you create inspiration and connection. And we are so grateful for your time today.
I'm right back at you, Kate. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Takeaway. Sy Montgomery, that girl, let me tell you, she's just amazing. We so appreciate that conversation. It was more than I thought it could be, and What a dear soul. And just so smart. I mean, she's like, and then Socrates says this. Like, she just pulls out stuff from all over. And, you know, reading her books, she does the same in her books, where she's like, well, let me just talk about 12 other things that relate to this one sentence I just said. She's amazing. So yes, I would say, I think for my overall takeaway, it kind of starts with, you know, Sy taking a species, right? We talked about, like the turtle, and she just hyper focuses in, and she like puts her whole life and energy and soul and body into the experience. And because of that, we get to know, you know, not all of it, but a lot of it, like what it means to be an octopus or a turtle. And I think if you kind of zoom back out, because her body of work is so great, but if you zoom kind of back out and look at her work as a writer, I feel like what she really does is she creates a sense of awe and inspiration. She writes about an experience of awe that fills our heart with love, and then our minds with interest and curiosity. And then back to, like Sy says, you know, awe renews our souls. And I feel like that's what her books do ultimately, where not just all but the inspiration. Like now, I feel like after reading this book, people driving on the road are just going to be a little bit more in tune to turtles on the side of the road. Like literally, Dave and I were just driving to a walk, my husband and I, and he's like, oh my gosh, there's a turtle. And so we moved this little box turtle, like she said, the same direction that it was going. But, you know, for me, she created like a deep sense of wanting to protect this wise, ancient, purely innocent creature. And also a sense of awe with something like this slow moving, you know, living in its own time, that she can create a sense of awe is incredible to me. I just feel like that's what I take away from a lot of her works.
Our brother Justin read the Octopus book, and he talked to me probably for about an hour about that a few years back, and I just remember what an impression it made on him. And he conveyed to me the same things she conveyed, you know, when we were having our interview with her. And to me, what strikes me as so valuable, and this is not unique to Sy, but the way she does this is unique, where I feel like transmits her immersion that she takes into a species right to us, and creates a little peek behind the curtain, is what I feel like happens, where everything she said, like the things like about, you know, what they see when they see a car, it's a flash. It's like, whoa, yeah, I never knew that. Or the thing about cross it the same way. I'm like, oh, I never knew that. And it's so obvious and so apparent, but just this, what always strikes me after a conversation like this is I can't care about something I don't know about. Yeah. I can't respect something I don't understand at all. And I don't purport to understand from just a 1 hour conversation with her. But what happens is it does rewire my brain to, it matters in a different way to me. Like I've always loved turtles too. And I always get so excited when you just see like a box turtle, and I always am happy to move them off the road. But now I'm like, did I move them the wrong way? Yeah. But I invested more because she shared her wealth of knowledge in a crystallized and digestible form to me, and now I care more. Yeah. And I think that's so much what we're trying to do by having this podcast too, is learn that for ourselves and disseminate that. And so to me, it's just so exactly what everything we do is about. She embodied.
Yes.
And
yes.
I also love.
True. Yeah. Go ahead.
And I loved especially how much you guys really got each other in such a such a heart and connected way. It's so lovely to see when you talk to somebody who, like for her, your appreciation of what she does just empowers her to do more of it too. And vice versa. So I thought that was very cool as well.
Yeah, no, and I think it's really, she said to both of us, she really loved talking to us. And I think really what she's talking to is kindred. And I think really above that, what she's talking to is this work we're doing is trying to connect people. It's exactly what you just said. I don't need to say it again. You said it perfectly. And I love that, I love how you put that. And you use the word disseminating that sort of information, I think is so true. And I kind of see it just sort of like she's sort of sprinkling over us as she's talking. But yeah, just again, thank you so much to Sy for joining us. She really was, she really does embody kindred for us. It's true. And I think every conversation we have with people does. And this was just sort of extra focused in that way, which was just such a treasure. It's like, I feel like we got a big old lump of gold, that we can just chip away from forever. And so what a beautiful conversation. And boy, she really does, when she said, when you look into the eyes of a turtle, you experience eternity or something, just like, oh gosh, right. Boy, does she get it. So, and I just want to say too that you can find more about Sy on her website, symontgomery.com, and for our show notes and everything. And also we're going to be putting up her schedule, like her tour schedule too. So wherever you guys are listening, keep an eye out. Go check out her. You can find it on hers or ours, our new website, kindredpodcast.co. And then you can also subscribe there for our newsletter. We talked about that in the intro. Of course, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Kindred Pod for us dropping a lot more information about Sy and Matt Patterson, and just the people they worked with. And I will say, at the end of the book of Time and Turtles, she gives a list of turtle rescues and a lot of them. So please check that out, because if you ever see an injured turtle, even if you think it's dead, please call someone, because there's a good chance it isn't. They're incredibly hardy. So sometimes you can just tell that they are, but just take a chance and go check that out. You can find her books wherever they're sold. And again, if you extra loved this episode and you've got some turtle friends out there, turtle lovers, please share it with them. And again, thank you so much to Sy. And I just want to leave this episode with a quote from one of her books titled "The Wild Outside Your Window." So just bear with me. It's just a beautiful little description of what is happening out there in our ecosystem in the natural world, and she wrote it so beautifully. So I will leave you with this, with lots of love. Beneath your porch, creatures with their skeletons on their outsides and their ears on their knees are singing with their wings. In your backyard, songbirds may be murdering mice, while on your lawn a battle rages between exotic and native species. All around us, extraordinary dramas unfold daily. Blue jays are replanting forests, baby turtles are launching epic journals, voles are warring like gladiators, plants are eating animals. Our lives are surrounded by ordinary miracles, everyday mysteries. To find them, all you have to do is indulge your senses. Follow the scent of the earth outdoors on a cool, wet morning in spring. Savor the taste of sun-drenched dewberries picked in the wild. On a hot August afternoon, go down to your local pond and inhale the scent of flowering water lilies. On a cool autumn night, let the moonlight call you outdoors to listen for the voices of migrating birds overhead. Thanks for listening, everybody. Lots of love. Kindred is hosted by me and my sister Jen, produced by Kat Gaddy and myself, sound production and editing by Dan Cooper,
Original music by Ellie Grace, and our Kindred artwork was created by Lindsay Coffin. Please follow, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts, and feel free to contact us through our website at kindredpodcast.co, where you can also find links to our socials, Patreon page, and show notes.